It's time for a stunning fruit mousse dessert, a dark chocolate raspberry mousse torte. But before I can get to making that raspberry mousse, well, I have to make the chocolate cake that is the base for this torte. And I'll start by sifting my dry ingredients. First, 3/4 cup of cake and pastry flour. This is a rich, moist chocolate cake that matches in texture with the fluffy raspberry mousse. So when you cut into it and enjoy a bite, oh, it just all kind of melts in your mouth. Next, 2/3 cup of sugar. A 1/4 cup of cocoa powder, and I like to use Dutch process here. It reacts well with the baking soda that's in the recipe, and it lends that rich chocolate color. 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I'll give this a sift in my mixing bowl, or you could sift this into a large bowl if you were using electric beaters. Now for my butter and milk. I've already cut up my 1/4 cup of butter into small pieces, and I put it back in the fridge. That way it stays cold. Essentially what I want to do is cut the butter into the dry mixture until it's a crumbly texture. And I start on low speed. There we go. I can tell this is ready because I can't see any large pieces of butter anymore. So now it's time to add the liquids. I've got hot brewed coffee, brewed really strong, a 1/4 cup. You'll often see coffee used in chocolate cake recipes, not because it adds coffee flavor, but it actually amplifies the taste of the chocolate. And to this, I'll add a 1/4 cup of milk, and the cold milk with the hot coffee equals room temperature, which is what I want. My room temperature egg, a teaspoon of vanilla, and I'll just give this a quick stir with a fork and add it all at once to the cake base. I'll start on low speed and then increase it, mixing it until it's nice and smooth. After just a minute or two, the cake batter really fluffs up. I've got my cake pan ready. It's a 9-inch springform pan. I've lined the bottom with parchment, greased and floured the sides. And you know, this is a good all-purpose chocolate cake recipe, so don't feel you have to use it just for a raspberry mousse torte. You could double it, or even triple it for a multi-layer chocolate cake. Just spread it loosely to level. It will liquefy once it hits the oven, but I give it a quick tap to knock out any big air bubbles. And this is ready for the oven. I've preheated it to 350, and it takes about 30 minutes to bake the cake. To test the doneness, I insert a skewer in the center. When it comes out clean, then I know it's done. Oh, that cake smells good. And perfectly done. Now, I need to let this cool. And I cool it for about 20 minutes in the pan, and then I take it out of the pan to cool completely. To get my pan ready, of course, it's cleaned out, and you want to line the inside with, it could be parchment paper, plastic wrap, or in the bakery world, we use these plastic sheets called acetate. You can find them at bakery supply stores, and you get a nice, beautiful, clean line to the outside of your mousse cake. So, first, of course, peel off the parchment off the bottom of the cake. So I drop the cake right into the bottom, and now it's ready for the fruit mousse to go on top. This recipe for my raspberry mousse is a classic bakery style. You could basically use any fruit puree you wanted to, and it sets to the exact same consistency. Now, this is a gelatin-based fruit mousse. So I have a 1/4 cup of cool water, and I'm going to bloom a tablespoon of gelatin. And what I have in my mixing bowl are 4 egg yolks and 1 whole egg. To that, I'll add 2/3 cup of sugar, and 3 tablespoons of lemon juice. I'll grab a whisk And then move over to my water bath, my bain-marie, that's gently simmering. And I'm going to whip this mixture of eggs and sugar with lemon juice by hand until doubled in volume. You do have to make sure you whisk constantly. If you'd rather, you could use electric beaters. I don't mind the old-fashioned way here. As I'm whisking this, I use the thermometer just to keep an eye on the temperature. 175. And there we go. You can see how beautifully thick, yet light and airy it is. Now I can add the gelatin and use the heat of this sabayon, this combination of eggs and sugar whipped up and cooked, to dissolve it. Gelatin, you don't have to heat fully or bring to a boil like agar. Now, for the raspberry, I have 1 cup of raspberry puree. Adding it now cools down this sabayon base. Look at that gorgeous color come through. There we go. Quick temperature check. Basically, if you close your eyes and you can't feel it, then you know it's cool enough. I've got 2 cups of whipping cream, which I've whipped already. And just like that lime mousse and the mango mousse, I'll fold it in 2 additions. Now this one, because of the volume of the cream and this liquid base, I actually prefer to use a whisk. The first addition of the cream will dissolve a little bit. That's factored into the recipe. And it cools it down even more, but it makes it easier to fold in the second addition of the cream. And a touch of vanilla. Want to make sure there are no visible streaks. And it is still fluid, but I can feel it setting up. Gorgeous. Now I'll pour this right on top of that chocolate cake, and it's going to fill the pan right to the very top. Smooth it out just a little bit. This is starting to look spectacular, but I'm not done with it yet. First, I have to chill it. 6 hours. That's a lot of mousse. So it's a great make-ahead dessert. A perfect and professional finishing touch to my chocolate raspberry mousse cake is a ganache glaze, just coaxing its way over the edges and dripping over the sides. So to make a ganache glaze, I have equal parts of dark chocolate and butter. In this case, I have 4 ounces of dark chocolate, and to that, I add 4 ounces of unsalted butter. Now, to help the glaze have a beautiful shine, I add about a tablespoon of corn syrup. Now, I set my bowl over a pot of barely simmering water. You just want a little bit of steam to gently melt the chocolate and butter together. Butter melts at a higher temperature than chocolate, so when you're stirring it, make sure that your ganache is nice and smooth. All those little butter pieces are melted. There we go. These last little pieces of butter are melted. It's nice and smooth and shiny. I'll just set this aside to cool for a few minutes, and I'll get that mousse torte ready. Torte like this is worthy of a beautiful cake stand. There we go. Now you can see why I use a springform pan. And I'll lift it out onto my serving platter. And whether it's parchment paper or this acetate plastic, you peel away. You have this beautiful, clean outside to your mousse torte. I like to use an offset spatula for this job. And you want to be a little focused here. I'm going to pour the chocolate right into the center and then coax it out to the sides. Not quickly, I don't want it to run off, but just so that it just drips over the sides. Take your time, but be aware of how you have to get close to your chocolate. Get to feel how it's moving as it curls over the side. quick little smoothing on top. There we go. And this is ready to chill again to set. At this point, half an hour is all you need. And here it is set and ready for slicing. That combination of the cake and the fruit mousse, that ganache glaze, it's such an accomplishment. Isn't that absolutely beautiful? And honestly, it all comes down to that beautiful pink raspberry fruit mousse right in the center.